The March 2022 housing statistics from Florida Realtors are in the books. So let's take a look, shall we? This year's spring buying season, Florida's busiest season for home sales, is now in full swing. But before we dig into the numbers, I will reprise what we've been saying over the past several months, which is that we really need to manage our expectations for this year's spring buying season compared to last year's. And that's because last year's spring buying season benefited from a very unique set of circumstances. I'll give you 4 examples of these factors. First, last year could really be considered our first spring buying season in 2 years, with the 2020 season having been snuffed out by the onset of the pandemic. So there was an excess of pent-up demand there. Second, the pandemic was still quite severe a year ago and was spurring relocations and second home purchases in Florida from out-of-state buyers. That's still happening now, but not to the same extent. Third, while our single-family inventory was severely depleted by the beginning of 2021, there was still some slack in our condo and townhouse inventory at the time. That inventory cushion allowed for last year's massive statewide boom in condo and townhouse sales. And last, but certainly not least, mortgage rates were still near record lows last spring. It simply can't be understated how much these low rates helped fuel housing demand during the pandemic. So far this year, though, mortgage rates have been on the rise. Freddie Mac reported that the average rate on the 30-year in March was an estimated 4.17%. And even more recently, they reported a weekly reading of 5%. That is a significant and rapid rise in rates, no doubt about it. But as we look at the housing statistics for March, we need to be cognizant of the fact that many of the finance sales that closed in March had their rates established in January or February, when average rates were still in the mid to high 3s, which, by the way, is still a significantly higher rate level than the average rates of 2.74% and 2.81% we had a year ago in January and February of 2021, respectively. As a result of these higher mortgage rates and less pandemic-driven demand, closed sales of single-family homes were down this March compared to a year ago by a little more than 6%. Condo and townhouse sales, meanwhile, fell by over 11%, which is not entirely surprising given how strong condo and townhouse sales were compared to single-family home sales last year. But remember, a year ago in March, there was 2.8 months supply of condo and townhouse inventory compared to just 1.2 months supply of single-family inventory. This year, these property types are at 1.2 months and 1 month supply, respectively. The playing field is leveled, so to speak. So we should expect year-over-year declines in condo and townhouse sales to be larger than those of single-family homes at this point. Last year's depletion of condo and townhouse inventory has also resulted in larger year-over-year price increases this year. In March, the median sale price in this property type category exceeded $300,000 for the first time this housing cycle, rising by more than 27% year-over-year to $308,000. The median price for single-family homes, meanwhile, is itself nearing the $400,000 mark, and may very well get there in April. While not quite as significant as the growth we've seen in condo and townhouse prices, year-over-year single-family home price growth is still exceedingly strong, checking in at over 21% in March. The big question over the next few months will be how much the recent elevation in mortgage rates will slow price growth. As I mentioned before, the sale prices reported for March are largely reflective of those financed closed sales that went under contract several weeks prior to the recent rate spike. Looking at new pending sales in March, however, we do see that these rates may be tapping the brakes on the market a little bit. New pending sales of single-family homes in March were down over 12% compared to a year ago, and they were down over 21% in the condo and townhouse category. But despite fewer sales so far this year, with these elevated prices, the dollar volume of closed sales remains high. Single-family dollar volume in the first quarter of 2022 came in at $42.1 billion, an 11.5% increase over last year, while condo and townhouse dollar volume was up over 16% to $16.1 billion. We've covered the state as a whole in this video, but what about your particular market area? Well, you can certainly check out how your market compares to the state overall if you're a member of Florida Realtors. As always, you can find your local area statistics at floridarealtors.org/research or through our new interactive web application, SUNSTATS, which you can find at sunstats.floridarealtors.org. See you all next month.